So the robot is back, and I bought Phantom in Red from Rabanne, and I truly hope it will impress me more than Phantom Elixir did. While I don't think Phantom Elixir smells bad, it really didn't impress me. I've maybe used Phantom Elixir like maximum 3 or 4 times. Something like that. Elixir is definitely, absolutely not my favorite in the line. So we have plum liquor, saffron and bergamot at the top, lavender, sage and orange blossom at the heart of it, and amberwood, benzoin, oud and tobacco at the base. So the Phantom bottles are squirters when in horizontal mode, so I'm skipping up in air this time and just go straight for what it smells like on skin. Okay, this is right away absolutely gorgeous, but also very, very familiar. And I pretty much right away know what this reminds me of. Hold on. Now this is just based on my very first few sniffs of Phantom in Red, but I definitely get something that is almost like a mix of Rabanne 1 million Elixir and Rabanne 1 million Royal. That gorgeous ambery warmth together with the lavender from Royal is definitely in Phantom in Red. And something in it definitely, I don't know exactly what it is, but something in it makes me think of 1 million Elixir. So at least the opening, based on my very first few sniffs of it, it definitely sort of reminds me of a fusion of these two. This is like ambery warmth with a touch of sweetness, but I definitely do not feel this is an overly sweet kind of scent, at least in the opening. And you also get a bit of aromatic brightness or freshness in the opening. The more Phantom in Red moves away from the opening and into the heart of it, this is just a few minutes later, I do feel a bit of woodiness creeping through, and based on my initial impressions of it, definitely turns into something that is a bit more woody. It's still quite ambery, it does have a bit of sweetness to it, and you can feel the lavender in the background. And this is where I actually feel Phantom in Red starts to move away a bit from that 1 million Royal and 1 million Elixir I got in the opening. I mean, there's a bit of sweetness to it here, however, I do not feel it has that gorgeous bubblegummy, almost sort of a bubblegummy kind of sweetness that Royal has. And even though I'm picking up on something super soft, almost vanilla-ish, I do not feel it has the intense vanilla and also the intense floral side that you can find in 1 million Elixir. And I mean, things are moving very quickly with Phantom in Red, so already in like a couple of minutes later, I do feel this is turning into something that is more woody. This is not just woody, there are definitely undertones of something, of a bit of a sort of a smokiness to it. So quite quickly, this changes into something that to my nose is quite intensely and actually gorgeously ambery warm. It definitely has a prominent dose of woodiness to it, and there's definitely something a bit smoky underneath it all. And I mean, there's still a bit of sweetness to it. Almost something that could be described as a hint of something that is sort of a fruity sweet. But I do not feel, at least at the heart of it, that this is an overly sweet scent in any way, and I actually wish that the plum that is supposed to be in it would have been more noticeable. The dry down is where I feel the whole thing starts to change at least a little bit. So I do feel that whatever sweetness is in here is amped up at least a little bit in the dry down. However, I still do not feel this is an overly sweet kind of fragrance in any way. This is still quite intensely and gorgeously ambery. Its woody side has definitely grown in intensity, and that sort of a smokiness that I started to pick up on at the heart of it is definitely slightly stronger. However, I do feel that part of it is definitely taking a backseat to the rest. I wish the lavender would have been more prominent in the dry down, because I absolutely love the scent of lavender, and I do think that part, if that part would have been more intense in the dry down, this would have been absolutely fantastic. But I mean, so far it definitely smells good, even though I do feel that they in a way took bits and pieces from some of the other ones in other lines and sort of fused that with the Phantom DNA. I'm gonna get to the far dry down in just a short while, but let's do some comparisons first and also go through the vibe, usage, compliments and mass appeal more. Let's do a super quick comparison with some of the other ones in the line, and I do feel right away it is actually quite different compared to them all. First off, it doesn't have the intense vanilla and also the intense aromatic side that pretty much all of these have. The OGDT, Phantom Parfum and Phantom Intense all have that sort of a core Phantom DNA, which is basically mostly about the combination of vanilla with an intense aromatic side. It doesn't have the earthiness that the Eau de Toilette has, and it definitely doesn't have the gorgeous freshness that Phantom Intense has. And it definitely doesn't have the richness and all the nuances and layers that the Parfum has. So compared to these three, I do think it's quite different. And when comparing these two, Phantom in Red and Phantom Elixir, I also feel these two are quite different. So they definitely took that Phantom DNA in quite a different direction with this release. And I guess you could say that direction was taking it to another one of their lines. This. So let's talk about the vibe of Phantom in Red, and I do not feel it has the playful and quite sexy vibe of the OG Eau de Toilette. I also feel it doesn't quite go in this exactly the same direction as the Parfum, and it doesn't have the fresh, casual kind of vibe as the Intense. So I do feel, if you ignore the bottle, that this actually takes the line in a slightly more mature and slightly more sort of an elegant direction. Mostly thanks to its prominent woodiness together with its intense ambery warmth, and that is not that sweet. So here are my initial thoughts on compliments and mass appeal. I do feel that this overall, when it starts to go into the dry down, turns into something that most people will enjoy getting away from. With that said, I do not feel Phantom in Red is among some of the absolute top compliment getters out there. And in a way, sort of a simplified Phantom in Red could almost be described like a toned down and more flat and simpler version of 1 Million Royal. And if you worn 1 Million Royal, then you know what a compliment getter it is. So here are my initial thoughts on usage. I do feel that even though this does have quite a bit of amber warmth and shine to it, even though it is quite intensely woody, I do not feel this is something overly warm, overly deep, overly heavy, overly sweet, overly anything basically. So I do feel this is a scent you pretty much can use throughout the year. With that said, Phantom in Red would definitely not be the first fragrance that I will be thinking of wearing on a warm summer day. During summer, this would definitely be something more for summer nights, and I do feel that Phantom Intense is definitely the one in the line that is better on warm summer days. When it comes to occasions, honestly, this is definitely something I feel you can wear to pretty much any occasion. Work, school, going out, going for a coffee, when you're going on a date, both casual and formal occasions. So who is Phantom in Red for? Let's make this super simple. If you usually absolutely love intensely amber warm scents that are also a bit woody, then you most likely enjoy this. If you don't enjoy that, then stay away. Now, I'm not saying that Phantom in Red smells exactly like 1 Million Royal, because these two are definitely not the same. However, you could in a way say that Phantom in Red is like a slimmed down, less rich and simpler version of 1 Million Royal. So if that sounds like something you might enjoy, then maybe get a sample of it. Once again, I'm not saying these two are exactly the same. I do think that overall this is the kind of scent profile most people will enjoy. However, this is also the kind of scent profile that you might already in your collection have a fragrance that is sort of doing the same thing. So let's quickly talk about some of the alternatives to Phantom in Red for a gorgeous dose of aromatic brightness and freshness in quite an ambery warm blend together with quite a smooth dose of woodiness and a super sexy, almost bubblegumish kind of sweetness. There's 1 Million Royal. In a very simplified way, 1 Million Royal could almost be described like a super amped up and more sweet version of Phantom in Red. I'm not sure you can see this, but I'm slowly approaching my way halfway through the bottle. Royal is a fantastic compliment getter and a fragrance I truly enjoy wearing. Phantom Parfum is an absolutely gorgeous alternative. These two, however, are very different. Phantom Parfum is basically a fantastic mix of aromatic freshness and brightness. You get a bit of sweet vanilla that sits on top of what I think is quite a creamy dose of woodiness. It's got a spicy kick in the opening, and I do feel there are nuances to its sweetness. And comparing these two, I definitely feel Phantom Parfum has more layers and more nuance to it compared to Phantom in Red. This is another wicked compliment getter, by the way. For what is pretty much the freshest take on the core Phantom DNA, you have Phantom Intense. This has grown on me a lot since I bought it, and this is the one in the line that I reach for when I want a fresh version of that DNA. And I do feel that Phantom Intense is actually quite a great everyday kind of fragrance. So I found Phantom in Red on a discounter, and I paid about $85 for 50 ml. So what are my final thoughts based on my first impressions of Rabanne Phantom in Red. Unfortunately, I can't really pick out the plum in here, so I'm not sure if the notes are wrong or if it's my nose. But what I'm getting in the far dry down is basically an extension of what I got in the dry down, which is basically a mix of amber, warmth and shine together with quite a prominent dose of woodiness. There's also quite a noticeable sort of a smokiness to the whole thing, but I do feel that still in the far dry down, the smokiness of it takes a backseat to the rest. And I mean, I do feel that when this thing goes into the far dry down, whatever it was that reminded me of 1 Million Royal is slightly more amped up. So this definitely, at least a little bit more, reminds me of Royal from the 1 Million line. I do think it smells really good, and it definitely, without a single doubt, impresses me more than Elixir did. I know some of my subscribers absolutely love the Elixir, and some think the Elixir is the absolute best in the line, but I do feel they did a better job on Phantom in Red. But I also feel it overall reminds me of quite a few other scents. So I definitely do not feel this is doing something new. But for this kind of scent, something that is a combination of ambery warmth and woodiness, I do feel this is doing ambery woodiness quite well. So I'm happy that I bought it, and I do think this smells really good. But at least currently, based on my very first impressions of it, this is not something that blows me away. And considering how it reminds me of 1 Million Royal, I almost feel Royal is a better choice unless you prefer a less sweet and toned down version of it. Considering how Phantom Intense grew on me the more I used it, I definitely look forward to wearing Phantom in Red more. So there you go. Now I really want to know how you feel about Rabanne Phantom in Red. Do you feel this is a fantastic release? Do you think it's a bad release? Do you feel it's mid? Let me know in the comments. Please drop a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my other videos over there.